Americans want Tucker Carlson's freedom. Right? Pretty straightforward stuff, right? Tucker Carlson has some serious freedom that the rest of us would really very much like to have. And I'm not talking about the freedom that he got from being born the Pillsbury Doughboy, the Swanson frozen food fortune heir. He was born a multimillionaire. He's a trust fund baby. And, there's a certain amount of freedom that comes with that, but that's not the freedom I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the freedom to promote his weird racist conspiracy theories every night on TV. I'm not even talking about his white privilege freedom. I guess that's where the Pillsbury Doughboy fits in. To drive down the street and not be afraid of getting pulled over or shot by a racist cop. Those are all real, but the freedom that I'm talking about is this freedom to go to work and know that nobody around him has COVID, to work in a COVID-free workplace. Most Americans would love to have that, particularly those Americans who have to deal with the public, who work in retail or restaurants and things like that. Well, how did he get that freedom? Well, Fox so-called News is one of the many American workplaces now that absolutely mandate vaccines. In fact, at the billionaire oligarch's company, Rupert Murdoch's company, they even developed their own in-house vaccine passport. And as the senior vice president for human resources, Kevin Lord, said in an internal memo, following our request for employees to upload their vaccination status in our secure system, we are pleased to share that more than 90% of our full-time employees reported that they are fully vaccinated. Now, out of that 10% that aren't fully vaccinated, a good chunk of them are probably, halfway through the regimen. They got the first shot, because you're not fully vaccinated until 6 weeks after your second shot. And he says anybody who's not fully vaccinated has to undergo a daily COVID test. I told you about this last week. The Danish Public Health Ministry said in a press release about 3 weeks ago, quote, the government will not extend the categorization of COVID-19 as a socially critical disease in Denmark. In fact, their Minister of Health, Magnus Heunicke, told the nation, the epidemic is under control. We have record high vaccination rates. Therefore, on September 10th, that was 2 weeks ago? A couple weeks ago? On September 10th, we can drop some of the special rules that we have had to introduce in the fight against COVID-19. The government has promised not to hold on to those measures any longer than was necessary, and we are there now. How'd they do it? Well, Denmark, like Fox News, had a vaccine passport that you had to show to get on a bus, to enter a store, to go to work. So everyone got vaccinated. A few days ago, the country officially opened up. They did away with the need for they even did away with the need for the vaccine passport, except for very, very large events. Israel, same thing. They had their passport. They called it the Green Pass. This is from yesterday's Times of Israel. Israelis celebrated the start of the week-long holiday on Monday evening, 1 year after the strict restrictions of Israel's second pandemic lockdown made last year's festival a more subdued affair. This year, citizens are allowed to gather for large festive meals and attend synagogue services with few limitations, while many are also taking advantage of the holiday to go on trips either within Israel or abroad. They're free in Israel. They're free in Denmark. They're free at Fox News. And most of the developed world, it's just a matter of weeks or even months at the worst away from that as they rapidly vaccinate their populations. And if we want to get there in America, we just have to hit 90% vaccination. It's real simple. I mean, we've got 2 countries now that have officially opened up and a half a dozen others that probably will in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And they're all showing the same thing. When you hit 90% vaccination, you have herd immunity and it stops the virus dead in their tracks. That R number, the reproduction rate number, goes from above 1 down below 1 all the way down to like 0.00 something. And it's just for all practical purposes, there's no more vaccine or no more virus. So wouldn't that be great? If we hit 90% vaccination and America was able to open back up and workplaces were virus-free, wouldn't that be wonderful? I mean, Joe Biden's popularity would go through the roof, which, of course, is why Republicans don't want it to happen. There's an election coming up in 14 months, and the Republicans want to make sure that when that election happens, we're having some pretty rough times here in America, so people will blame it on Joe Biden and the Democrats. In Wisconsin, for example, this week, a school board member resigned his job because his house and his family were being stalked and threatened by Trump humpers. What was his crime? Voting for the kids in the school to wear masks. Seriously. No, not making this up. This was his crime. And for that, he had people parked outside his house. He had people following his wife and children. He had people calling and threatening him. He said, quote, "With these pieced artifacts of selective information floating around in the communications that I've received as a result, my family no longer feels safe. Therefore, I have to do what is best for my family and their well-being and resign my position on the school board effective immediately. It isn't in my family's best interest for me to try to appease a vocal group that continue to try to intimidate, harass, insult, and throw civility to the side." Why are these Republicans harassing school board members? Because they don't want the pandemic to go away. They want to drag this thing out so that it will hurt the Democrats. They don't care how many people die. They don't care how many people get long COVID. They don't care how many people are permanently disabled. They don't care how many people are wiped out with their hospital bills. By the way, starting last month, the big insurance companies pretty much started saying, hey, back to copays, you're on your own. And as a result of this, I mean, these guys, these Republicans, they were gung-ho when Donald Trump started Operation Warp Speed. Oh, boy, Operation Warp Speed, our hero is getting this done. But then Joe Biden gets in the White House, and all of a sudden, 180. A sudden U-turn. Oh, we can't have vaccines. Even if Donald Trump paid to develop them, we can't have vaccines. And as a result, hospitals across America are melting down. We have two states, Alaska and Idaho, that have declared crisis standards of care, which means rationing medical services. Only the people who are most likely to survive are going to get medical treatment, and those who are the sickest and most likely to die are being given what's called palliative treatment, if I'm pronouncing that right. Basically, here, have some morphine. You can sleep in this bed in the manager's office. And why is this? All because the Republican followers of Donald Trump are not getting vaccinated, and they are overwhelming the hospitals. And to make it worse, the hospitals are having to turn away people who have scheduled cancer surgeries or heart attacks or strokes. They say, don't even bother showing up. We can't take you. We've got no beds. Sorry. Go someplace else. And this is all fueled by a cynical Republican Party and the billionaire-funded media branches that are promoting this. That's the bad news. The good news is we're going to get there whether the Republicans want it or not. California, I mentioned this yesterday. California last week achieved the lowest COVID case rate in the nation, 32 people per 100,000. Mississippi, Texas, Florida, they're all in the 300 per 100,000, like 10 times more. And California's case rate, by the way, would be half of what it is if they didn't have all these red counties. Same thing here in Oregon. So now the Republicans are coming up with stories about why hospitals are having to go to crisis levels of care. They're saying it's because nurses are quitting rather than getting the vaccine. Therefore, the hospital's in a crisis. Nope, sorry, that's not happening. There was a hospital, a 23,000-person hospital chain in Maine. They required 100% vaccination. Bunch of people, some nurses went out and talked to the press and said, we won't stand for it. We don't want to get vaccinated. The hospital said, okay, you've got until September 10th. Guess what? Total number of people who chose not to get vaccinated out of 23,000, 45. Only a couple of them were actual medical staff. All the rest of them were like janitors and things or whatever. United Airlines, 20,000 employees. They said if you don't get vaccinated, you try a religious exemption, that's fine. Unpaid leave. Out of the 20,000 employees of United Airlines, fewer than 10 have chosen not to get vaccinated. This is spreading across corporate America. Blue state America has already woken up and said, okay, we've got this thing figured out. The COVID crisis is under control in blue areas. It's out of control in red areas. The Republicans are desperately hoping, they don't care if their own voters die. In fact, they're quite enthusiastic about it. They're promoting this every night on Fox News and across right-wing hate radio. And some of them actually, sadly, this is the, in my business, my heart just bleeds for my peers. I've 6, I believe, I know for sure 4 right-wing radio hosts have now died of COVID just in the last few weeks because they believed or practiced what they were preaching. This is really sad. But this is the state of America right now because the Republican political strategy is melt down the country in anticipation of the 2022 election so that Joe Biden doesn't get credit for ending the pandemic. We've got to stop this. We've got to stop them. And if we can get America as free of virus as is Denmark, Israel, and Fox News, then we can all be free, right? Wouldn't that be great?